Well, you gotta have a snack. You start these moves. Cool. Oh, can I go and see that? Yes. Yes. Oh, that's good. Or did you just have your revenue? Oh, like, yeah. It has to be similar, that's fair. Save a tray. Find it. It's yeah. I can curry.
Are we recording?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sharon.
It's like a proper gavel. Oh, all right. Right. We'll come up with something appropriate. All right, I will call the meeting to order at 6:35. We have a quorum, so we're ready to go. The notice of meeting was properly sent and accepted. Let's move on to item 3, the reading and approval of minutes from the previous meeting. Yeah, move it. Go to meeting minutes, or
Sorry?
am I reading the minutes into the record here from the previous meeting, or are we just looking for a motion to approve?
Yes, because I sent them guys email for any comments.
All right. You guys want to know what the minutes were? You'll have to go back and watch a recording of the meeting. Motion to approve the minutes of the previous meeting in November.
So moved. I'll second.
Mr. Moore moves to approve the minutes. Mr. Church seconds. We need a roll call for a minute approval. Okay. All those in favor?
Yeah.
Aye. We can move on to item 4, report of the treasurer.
Sorry, oh, we had it.
Oh, we need to approve the June meeting minutes because that was not accomplished.
Right, only 2 members can vote.
And only 2 members.
Unless, the football should recuse because you haven't, you were not.
I'll try.
Is that a line before?
For purposes of this meeting, we can do 1 of 2 ways. There is a quorum here. And so if there's a 2-0 vote, there's no glitch. Technically, we can have 4 votes, so it just stays out there as a 2-0 vote. Or we can simply say that we do not have enough members to approve the minutes, and the minutes will remain in draft form.
Motion to approve the minutes from the June 2024 meeting.
I will make a motion.
We have a second. I will second. Ms. Amato moves to approve the June meeting minutes. Mr. Nato seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
The other 4 are abstaining.
Abstain.
Abstain.
Abstain. All right, we can move on to item 4, report of the treasurer. Mr. Moore.
This report is for November of 2024. Our operating account ending in 2847, beginning balance of 520,520.19, with a total deposit of $94,308.01. The total disbursements of $7,620.35, leaving an ending balance of $607,209.85. The payroll account ending in 8243, opening balance 47,148.44. With the payroll expense of 10,436.34, with interest paid of 128.10, having a closing balance of $36,840.20. The application funds ending in 22855 have an opening balance of 14,151.44. Have a closing balance of no transactions, and then have a closing balance of 14,151.44. The lesser tenant account ending in 2863 have an opening balance of $2,502.14 with interest accrued of $7.42, leaving a closing balance of $2,509.56. The labor monitoring account ending in 7072 have an opening balance of $15,014.79 with no transactions, having the same closing balance. Our money market account 2871 have an opening balance of $1,276,633.43 with interest paid of $3,784.56, leaving a closing balance of $1,280,417.92. Our Newburgh South Logistics Center account 6521 have an opening balance of $45.05. Have a deposit of $525.54, disbursements of $500.25, leaving a closing balance of $45.59. Our Provident Bank account ending in 4346 have an opening balance of $0 with no transactions and a closing balance of $0. Our Provident Bank 5683, opening balance of $4,258,821.87. No transactions recorded, and we have a closing balance of the same amount. And that concludes the treasury report.
Thank you, Ms. Demora. I have a motion to approve the treasurer's report for November 2024.
So moved.
The church moves to approve the treasurer's report for November 24. Right, a second. Sonado. Roll call on the motion. Ms. Pell,
Yes.
Ms. Church.
Yes.
Mr. Morris,
Yes.
Mr. Nata,
Yes.
Ms. Amato.
Yes.
I'm also a yes. The treasurer's report is approved. Have a motion to approve the bills for November 2024.
I make a motion to approve the bills.
Sonata moves to approve the November 24 bills. May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Morris seconds. Roll call on the motion.
Yes.
Bell,
Yes.
Church, Mr. Moore.
Yes.
Mr. Nato.
Yes.
Ms. Amato.
Yes.
I'm also a yes. Motion carries. Audit and Finance Committee reports.
The audit and finance reports recommend the adoption of the following policies. The mission statement, investment policy, policies governing the use of authority for discretionary funds, procurement policy, our property disposition policy, our property acquisition policy, recapture policy, the uniform tax exempt policy, uniform criteria of evaluation of the project policy, internal control policy, the 1 year and 5 year budgets and the fee structure of the agency.
And the Audit and Finance Committee is recommending the full board adopt these policies as presented to the committee.
Yes.
All right, motion to adopt. Is this thing the housekeeping resolution? Great. So we'll do that at the end. I have an item here, audit services for 2022.
That time that's what we'll be using and that you have experience with them, yes, and so we already have that date scheduled for in the second week of February though.
And I'll ask only because I'm relatively new in my service on the board. I would assume the term was selected pursuant to the agency's procurement policy. All right, item 5 is the chairman's report, chairperson's report. The mission statement for 2025 at the recent meeting of the governance committee, at which we reviewed policies for recommendation of adoption. The mission statement was one of those. I will read the proposed mission statement for 2025, which is the same as 2024, just updated to reflect the new year. The mission of the City of Newburgh Industrial Development Agency is to help attract and contribute to Newburgh's job opportunities, a diverse and net positive tax base to provide long-term economic prosperity and sustainability, and advance the general welfare and standard of living for the city and its residents through the promotion, development, encouragement, and assistance of commercial, technology, tourism initiatives, recreational facilities, warehousing, manufacturing, and industrial facilities, utilizing green practices and adaptive reuse where available. The committee also reviewed the agency's bylaw, which included some recommended updates presented by agency counsel, as well as the anti-harassment policy, which has been updated to conform with recent changes to the state constitution, the board of directors' duties and responsibilities, the agency's code of ethics, conflict of interest policies, the FOIL policy, the local labor policy, the whistleblower protection policy, and the workforce housing policy. Other than the changes to the agency bylaws and anti-harassment policy as presented by agency counsel, the other policies were reviewed and will be presented to the full board for adoption in their current form. And we'll take care of that housekeeping resolution as well. Item 6, council's report.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to be here this evening. Just a couple of updates for you. The board approved the Brookfield or IV5 matter last month. Closing documents were sent out to council. Have not heard from council. Was hoping for a closing this month, but I think they're probably waiting until the new year to pay the agency's closing fee or costs. So I would expect that happens in January, but the documents, at least the initial draft, was sent out to council. We're waiting for his response. Scobie Drive, you have a contract of sale to sell. Just an update, DEC did submit a new plan within the last 10 days that would require that the proposed owner to put an additional cap on the site, which is consistent with, given the fact that it was a brownfield. It is a brownfield. I don't believe that they were expecting this additional cap requirement. It does cost additional funds. Whether or not that changes the project, will be determined by the new owner or the potential buyer. But just as an awareness to the board that has been a change that was not anticipated. Murphy's Ditch. I think two of the board members have heard of this before. Murphy's Ditch is where is Murphy's Ditch?
Under the parking lot of Home Depot in the town of Newburgh.
The agency has an ownership right to the easement. When the easement was provided to the developer, there was a $155,000 total payment that was due, $45,000 upon the execution, $55,000 upon the issuance of the first certificate of occupancy, and an additional $55,000 due upon the second certificate of occupancy. Those last two payments were never made. The executive director requested that we send demand letters out in 2023. We received the agency received one $55,000 payment in August of 2023. And since that time, there's been a constant back and forth or occasional back and forth between the company, their counsel, and us. Where's the other $55,000? We've sent it. Where's the proof? We've sent you the proof. There is no proof. We've already sent it to you, and so we're at a point now where we've been badminton back and forth for the better part of about 6 or 8 months. Our recommendation to the agency is to consider a lawsuit seeking the additional $55,000 payment. I think that will shake some trees loose. But again, we're at a point where we can't do anymore. So it's nothing that you have to decide on tonight. It's our recommendation. But you can certainly decide, think about it, decide next month. But there is 55,000 that you will clearly do once the second deputy occupancy is positioned.
How could we Sunday something? Is something now and now the loss or?
So what we best, that's a great question. What we best can determine is that they think the 55,000 that was sent in August was the payment. And they somehow think that because they sent it once, it counts twice. And we initially asked them for, where's this other payment that you made? And they sent us proof of the August 2023 payment. And so there's just an impasse now. We've gone back and forth. We spoke to counsel, and partner spoke to counsel. He's no longer picking up the phone call. So it's kind of that, you know, either you waive it and move on, or you pursue it. It is 55,000. It's not an insignificant sum. Doesn't make sense to spend 50 to get 55, but it does make sense, we think, to perhaps draft someone's complaint, prepare it, file it, and then see where it goes.
So we now understand that, as I think many suspected before Home Depot was built, that this would have severe water quality effects on the city of Newburgh. Is the revocation of the easement make them do something better? Is revocation of the easement an option?
We'd have to take a look at that. I would get one of my partners that does sell menus on that. That's a great question. I'll report that.
That's
There was I'll report back by the end of the year.
Yeah.
And then finally, on the cell tower, there's some confusion on the cell tower lease. And I think some of the confusion may have been caused by a report that one of my associates made about a year ago. The cell tower lease was signed in 1987. The city leased it to the agency for 30 years. So that lease does not expire until 2020. That lease was essentially a construction lease. Go build this tower for us. And the best that I could determine from the file that exists is that there was a different law firm in Albany that was chartered with trying to get the highest cell tower built as possible. And it was not as high as anticipated because of the so I think it's 157 feet. You were supposed to be 180 feet. The lease with what's now Crown Castle says that the city will get free services for the entire duration of the lease with Crown Castle. That lease was extended by this board in September based on a few conditions. That it would be for 25 years with 5 repeating terms that could be cancelable, that canceled upon a year's notice. For that, Crown Castle was to pay a one-time fee of $20,000 for that extension. We did draft a lease in accordance with that. We sent it out. We only received comments back on Friday. I'll report back to the board where we all with those comments, but that is finally progressing and being hopefully going forward. But there's nothing, at least that this agency has to do with the lease with the city until 2027. And that's all I have.
Great, thank you. Item 7, Executive Director's Report.
So, it's busy month and all of this kind of envelops my work, so I don't have anything specific to say. Did for after speaking to the chair, how we will be conducting public hearings moving forward. So they'll always be before a board meeting. That way everyone is present. And at max we'll do 2 hearings before the board meeting. And moving forward, the way we do the recordings for the meeting, I will reach out to the contact that you mentioned. That's a busy council meetings that are just a little rushed for this one, but I'll reach out to them. I have no idea what that costs, but once I find that out, I'll reach out. And I'll let all of you know. We have one project that's still in the pipeline besides the developers that are here today. That's for the Shaw Building. I anticipate that they'll appear in January. Initially, we're gonna be at this board meeting, but they were gonna give way, so they would like to be present for that. And then lastly, all I have is the information from the bank. So that way, everybody who is going to be a signature from the bank, just please stay afterwards so that I can get your signatures. And then you can sign checks and then your signatures about, you know. That's it.
Great. And before we get into new business, I just want to clarify that conversation a little bit, seeing as we have some developers in the room. The impetus for that is that public hearings should in fact be public, and not just in a room, in City Hall with a couple people, right? That's part of the reason why this board has moved the meetings to the activity center to accommodate a larger number of people, and to, provide enhanced parking and just better infrastructure for people to attend. So we will be doing the public hearings at the IDA meetings now and not separate, because I think it's important that the members of the board hear from the public. We are providing financial incentives that the public will bear the cost of. So I think it's important to just have that piece as part of the record as we're moving these projects forward. And the board is lucky to have some incredible projects before it that I think the public has already indicated a great deal of support for. So with that, you can move on to item number 8, new business. And we have a couple resolutions for tonight. The first resolution 2024-12-16-01 is a resolution to hold a public hearing regarding a proposed project to be undertaken for the benefit of 104 Washington Street LLC.
We have the consultant from RB is going to, Michael from RB is going to discuss and explain and answer any questions you might have regarding the cost benefit analysis and the test of reasonableness, as well as for the following project as well. You all have copies of those reports attached to the resolution.
Sure. Before I jump in, so Michael and Bill from MRP Group, we've been CID a while now, done quite a projects. Our role for the new board members, our role is to we conduct different analysis. One is the cost benefit analysis. That is basically what are we giving up, right? That's the tax credits, tax abatements, tax incentives, right? And what do we give? Those are the benefits, right? The benefits we're getting are tax revenues, employment, and wages, right? So that first report, the thicker of the two in landscape format, is laying out all of that in a manner that's consistent with the governing statute of IDs, right? How many representatives, how much, where it's many, many, many times. This is exactly how it's supposed to be.
For the benefit of the new members, the statute requires the CBA to be in hand and reviewed before you can consider the public hearings.
Thank you. In addition to that, the second report is a letter. It's called the 10th of April. And some of the board members have seen a few of these already, but for those that haven't, we asked the developers in each case for a pro forma financial statement, right? We asked for it to Excel. It's got to be functional. It's got to make sense. It's got to be able. We have to be able to evaluate it. Number of things. Essentially, what we're doing is on behalf of the IDA and the public, we are determining whether or not the ask of the developer for sales tax exemption, mortgage recording tax exemption, and in particular the pilot exemption is reasonable. Reasonable being defined as enough to induce the project and no more, right? We're not here to give, an inducement beyond what's needed. Right? So we look through their, pro forma. We look through, their assumptions in there about revenues, their assumptions for expenses. We look at their, capital stack, their loans, their equity. And we have discussions with the developers. We ask questions, we receive responses, we produce our own analysis, and we come up with what we think the rate of return is for the project. We compare that rate of return to publicly known benchmarks, right? So for apartment projects, the return is between X and Y. Is their return between those two numbers, right? Is it above it? Is it below it? So if it's between the minimum and maximum, we say it's reasonable. And we invite you to move forward. Not that you have to wait for me to say anything, but this is really something that the IDA has been very careful about with respect to giving incentives to developers that are consistent with the public benefit. So with that said, with 104 Washington Street, I can quickly go through that. We can, at the public meeting, I'll go through this in detail, if you're public know. But I'm just going to cover just the executive summary. If you have questions, happy to go through those questions. And again, it's something we'll cover at the public meeting. So on what is labeled as page 3, you see the economic impacts. We have construction jobs and ongoing jobs. The construction jobs, of course, during the this is based on the developer's assumption of how much labor and materials are going to be sourced locally. And in this case, for construction, we define local as the counter. So based on the information, we have calculated 33 construction jobs, earning $1.6 million during construction. Those new jobs and that new spending, some of those wages are spent locally, right? And that creates additional jobs, right? Some of the construction spend is spent locally, that creates jobs. That's the indirect column. So the 33 construction jobs, the 8 indirect jobs, is a total of 41 jobs earning 2.1 million during the construction. The second 2 lines are the ongoing jobs. So this is each and every year that this project is active. What are the job counts? In this particular case, project has both housing and a commercial component. Okay. So we say, hey, if you have 14 new housing units, those are 14 new households that are spending their earnings, right? Local, some of it's local, and that creates jobs in the community. And we have some jobs at the site itself in the commercial spaces, right? So the combination of those two things is 9.5 jobs. You have 5.5 indirect jobs for a total of 15, earning 900 change annually in wages. Right. So those are the economic impacts. You turn the page, we go to page 4. We now compare the benefits to the costs. On the benefit table, we have one-time construction sales tax benefit, 13,800. That's been the construction period. Of course, you're giving, if this project moves forward and you reduce it, you're giving a sales tax exemption. This is not sales tax on the materials of construction. This is sales tax that comes from the construction workers' spending. Operations, during the 30-year time frame that we're looking at, the ask is 30 years. We anticipate 318,000 in sales tax revenue to the county. These are just the county numbers. We don't know this. And then finally, the property tax revenue. This is the increase above the current amount that's being paid in property tax of 244,000. Those are all the benefits. Okay. The cost of the exemptions are listed in the next table. Sales tax exemption, just the county leave listing is state 133. Mortgage recording tax exemption, 15,000. And the pilot exemption, That's the difference between if the project moves forward at full tax versus the pilot schedule being proposed. That's a cost of 2.4 million. So I would invite you guys to just to flip all the way to the second to last page, the third and second to last page, which is pages 18 and 19. All of this is summarized in a single table on page 18. You can see the local costs, the local benefits, and you have ratios at the bottom. I call your attention to the benefit to cost ratios. The benefits here include all of the fiscal benefits plus the economic benefits, which is household income. So if you add all those up, for every dollar of cost, you get $1.45 of benefit based on this project decisions. The second ratio is looking at just tax revenue. This is saying for every $1 of exemption that would be granted, those municipalities would receive 23 cents. Okay. Now, just to be aware, there is no minimum ratio, right? There's nothing in the law that says it's gotta be X dollars for the stuff, right? This is for your sake to look at what are the costs, what are the benefits, what do we get, what are we giving, right? I would say this is a good number to compare one project to another, right? So we'll go over more detail in the public hearing, but I'm happy to take any questions you might have of that. And if not, I can move on to the tester feasibilities.
Questions? There's the legal profit for what sort of reviewing these rates are.
Yes. So we can pull all of the old reports. I don't have them all top of my head, but I certainly can. This particular one is, essentially an affordable housing project. With a small commercial. So I'm not surprised at these benefit ratios. Simply because affordable housing projects do not. Use a lot of things. So I would say this is out of line. There's nothing out on board this. But I'm happy to go back and tell you the other issues. So the test of reasonableness, again, we'll cover this in more detail hearing. But I'll just say, we go in, we look at their analysis, we look at their financials, we say, okay, is this the right, do these expenses look right? Do these revenues look right? How does this compare to the market? The market rents, the market in commercial rents and residential rents. Are there expenses in line with what we normally see here? Is there anything unusual with capital stack, any unusual expenses they're showing? We go back and forth, we ask a few questions, we say, hey, how we should this way, why need this? Have some conversations with the applicant. Occasionally they will revise their projections based on those conversations and resubmit them for our consideration. We go through them again. I'll just show you on page 3. All we're doing is we're looking at sort of ease saying, is their assumption significantly different or approximately the same as what we expect? You can see the interest rate they're using, the debt service coverage ratios of value, the amortization period that's going. That's in the capitalization rate of all except the capitalization rate on 10 rate. Means to say these appear to be reasonable assumptions. The one that you want to call attention to is the equity dividend rates. For most projects, that's the key number. The equity dividends is essentially what are the owners of the project, the equity part, right? The people that are putting in the cash, right? What are they getting on their return, right? We found this particular lease equity dividend rate that's been shown in the financials is within the normal, right? So they're getting what would be considered to be a normal return on their equity. Which is where we want them to be. Again, for the public benefit, we don't want them to be getting an excessive return, anything more than what's necessary. The rest of it just explains, what we looked at, operating expenses, the escalation, that we didn't find anything unusual. So the conclusion of it is that it appears to be reasonable. Happy.
Have, developer in the audience, I just want to give you an opportunity to comment on that if you choose to, if you want to hold it for the public hearing.
No, just wanted to thank Michael. Sure. Trevor's process. That. Here's reasonable. And that does have some transparency and third party validation. On the project, that's not underwrite risk by trade, and so this provides, I think, some good insight for the nature of the projects or to the public's vote. Makes sense.
All right. Do I have a motion to approve resolution number 2024-12-16-01, which authorizes a public hearing regarding the proposed project to be undertaken for the benefit of 104 Washington Street LLC.
Point of clarification. So this one does not have a date, but again, just reiterating, they will now be held at the next meeting, the next.
Yes,
Okay.
so just to,
In the
That's
past,
the-
it was, we were just giving you any time, but this one will specifically be at the next.
correct. and when we
Understood.
Finish this, we can talk about. Go at the next one, because we have 3 waiting.
Understood. I will make that, with that, I will make that motion.
This church moves the approval of resolution number 2024-12-16-01. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Morris seconds. Roll call.
Michael, no? Sorry.
Oh, nice. No.
I'm sorry, wait.
Sure.
I just want to make sure of the timing. So as I think we talked about 2 meetings ago, the statute requires a 10-day notice for a normal public hearing. This is also requesting a deviation. So we have to send out a computer resolution with a deviation letter as to the reasons why to all the taxing jurisdictions in the county, school district, and obviously the city. The old statute, 10, 15 years ago, had a 30-day period over it. Legislature didn't do that. So for that deviation, there is no timing requirement. It's always been our recommendation that you provide the taxing jurisdictions with as much time as possible. So that, you know, that they have other things going on. They may or may not be able to attend the hearing. They certainly can submit written comments to the deviation from the on tax exempt policy. This resolution does say that you have a 30-day notice period. That makes it kind of tight to hold at the next meeting, which is the 22nd, right?
Yeah, I looked today. I believe tomorrow, probably in the morning, I should be able to make it. I should be able to post it to every real time for the 22nd. Of December. So look, if I post it, I have enough time to get it for the December 22nd.
So you have enough time and it gets in. So my only comment for the board to consider is maybe reduce that time period to 25 days. We can give them 30, we can give them 30. If we get it done tomorrow. But that's just a, you know, my fear is that something goes wrong with the newspaper. And we don't have a 30-day period, 30-day notice by January 22nd meeting, and we have to push the public hearings to February, which is, you know, I don't think any of us care about this weekend. So then,
So the 30 days is not, it's under our internal concerns.
there is no, it's just So, you know, we as your lawyers have always said, if you're giving a deviation, you should get extra time, say 10 days. The old statute said 30, so that's kind of always been, well, that has been my recommendation. To kind of follow, well, to follow the statute. Because of the timing of your next meeting. And if Cher gets everything in tomorrow, we get a one notice of sale, or presumably the second, and we've already done that notice of sale, just have to change things. The Philippe's we can get done tomorrow. And really, the only thing we have to get out tomorrow is the notice of sale. It's in the time sale record. So we can certainly do it. But the time sale record, that presumes they see it tomorrow, that presumes they can get it in, that presumes it's published by Friday. And things happen. So try and get 30, we can amend it to say, you know, not less than 25. But if we get 30, we get 30. But I think that might be a better change.
If
Given
we,
the time.
do we make a practice of directly reaching out to an appropriate point of contact with taxing jurisdictions? In addition to the normal mechanisms of providing notice? Is that something that we do? I can't imagine it's something that we typically do if we're complying with the legal requirements and other things.
Part of it's usually just mailing. With the city, since we all work in the same building, I will hand deliver and email a copy and mail a copy. I think the only other thing I can do, mail a copy.
Statute says that you have to provide through mail the notice and a copy of this resolution with the deviation letter of the reasons for the deviation. So our recommendation was, even if you can't deliver, to also mail it. Because you don't want the developer to have problems if some are challenging in do the mail. And with the statute, it's specific on how to. That, you know, the statute requires the publication. So that I'm more concerned about. We can do the mailing till Friday. That'll be fun. I'm definitely before being before the first. I'm just concerned with the newspaper publishing.
And the 30 days begins to run from publication or from notice of publication implementation.
So, and again, the 30-day period is not there in statute. It's just a recommendation. So if we can say not less than 25 days. We do it tomorrow and it gets in by Friday, you have 30 days. Well, we do it tomorrow, it gets in on Monday, we still not less than 25.
So reducing this to 25 days complies with the law. Keeps us on track. And 5 days is really just not a mess. Okay. All right, the mechanism by which we would accomplish the amendment.
Just by discussion, and then I'll amend it tonight, and I present it for signature by the secretary. Will be not less than 25 days. Then you can make that small motions.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion from Ms. Church on the floor to approve the resolution on no less than 25 days notice.
That's
Okay. Thank you for that. Do we have a second?
Vicky already did second.
Okay, thank you. So roll call on the motion to specifically include a 25-day notice.
Knuckle,
Aye.
Alexander Church.
yes.
Viviana Delon,
Yes.
Greg Renato,
Yes.
Christina Amato, Sean Top.
Yes.
All right. Resolution 2024-12-15-02 To a resolution authorize a public hearing regarding the proposed project undertaken for the benefit of 50-73 British LLC.
Right. That's Linda for like. Research.
I'll go a little quickly, just had you. I will just say that these two projects are interesting in that they're a similar composition of both housing and small and commercial.
Sorry. So just to recall, you did approve this already for a public hearing. Between the date of the meeting and tonight. There have been meetings with us. And the developer and his group, his consultants. And certain changes have been made to the request for financial assistance. That requires new public hearing, resolution, new deviation letter to advise the tax and jurisdictions of those changes. And it also required Mike to review analysis on the scene and the streams. So already seen this. This is now redo based on the new changes that we. Thank you for that. Sorry.
So it's got this one, it's the 14 units, which was the previous one, this is 145. 18 of which are market rate, the rest are income specific. Just maximum AMI area meaning. It also has some commercial space in Toronto. I'm actually going to start first with the test of results for a reason to this ensure that you're. In this particular case, we again looked at the developers provided financials, instructions, those that with we had market data, we compared that to what we were seeing. In the course of those discussions, we identified a few things in the projections. That's what you have. Following that is when we got revised projections, revised planning, right? Be different to pilot pass. In addition to a revision to the pilot pass, the applicant has withdrawn its request for a sales tax exemption and a mortgage reporting tax exemption. So you'll see in the CBA that those are blank. They are receiving those benefits via a different mechanism. So the IDA but based on those conversations and based on the revised projections, we were able to come to a reasonable. I'm going to just make one statement about this because this is a slightly different approach than what the other board members that have seen these before are used to seeing. And here's the difference. Their project is running through a bunch of HFA programs, right? Hospitalizations, right? And the developer's return is predominantly the developer fee, right? That they get for this. HFA stipulates that developer, right? And what they would allow. So rather than make an independent determination about whether or not the developer fee is adequate or whether or not the developer fee is excessive, we're basically leaving that in the hands of HFA. And the question we're asking is slightly different here, which is with the free cash flow that's coming off of this project, how much of that is going to pilot payments, right? Now, of course, we have to be reasonable about it ourselves because they have to have reserves, they have to have a margin, this thing has to be able to be financing, right? So we're thinking about it in a slightly different way. We're basically saying, is there any extra free cash flow that we could capture in the pilot, right? So, based on the revised projections, we determined that in fact, the free cash flow was being directed primarily into the pilot payments and therefore was a reasonable balance. It also passed the debt service coverage ratio, so it's financing. It appears to be able to move forward. So those are the things that were driving the changes to the cost benefit analysis. I will just very, very briefly go through that. Page 3, you again see the construction jobs, a total of 158 construction period. And ongoing jobs are 52. Again, this is a combination of jobs that are a result of new household spending. There's 145 new households. And jobs at the site itself in the commercial spaces, right here. So the 52 jobs, that approximately 2.5 million in wages. The fiscal benefits and fiscal exemptions on the second page, or page 4, second page is a summary. You can see there. I won't read through all the numbers. It's all the same thing. Construction sales tax, sales tax from the household, sales tax in the operations, and the increase in property tax revenue. And the increase in property tax revenue over the 32-year term of the requested pilot is about $8 million. They are not asking for a sales tax exemption. Tax exemption, the pilot exemption is valued at $7.2 million over those same terms. Okay, so they're paying 7.2 million less than they would otherwise pay in full tax, but they are paying $8 million more than this property would pay if not improved by the project. If you flip to the very end of page 18, you have that cumulative impact, all the figures there, you can see the benefit cost ratio is 2.63, and the tax benefit to tax cost ratio is 1.26. I know I went through that quickly here, but again, happy to take questions on either the to read the list or the perspective.
Were the adjournments from the original proposal to the process be?
That's a great question. I'd have to go back and look at the exact number, but they were quite significant. Right? I mean, I think it's in a couple of numbers. About 3 million. Thank you. About $3 million in additional pilot payments under this schedule than under the previous schedule.
Also, his cover letter, where he submitted those changes, is the first attachment. After the resolution, you can see there. States, the strikes were usually value of from 10 million to 70, so that distance is.
And they would leave deals for the sales tax exemption and more quarter tax exemption. Goes under the HFA program, so I understand. Sorry, the other changes, again, I would ask that we consider not less than 25 days with a notice. And then the applicant. Assignment with the application to a new entity, Liberty Street Apartments, LLC. And so this resolution does provide that it will be signed to Liberty Street Apartments, LLC going forward.
Do your funding sources to meet for the city of New York of residents? Or do your funding sources require that they provide the residents for?
It's a great question. You get that all the time. So HFA requires that thing to, that we not discriminate and means by this, make these apartments available or no. That being said, we are allowed to target in the sense geographically targeted advertising of the units. And so the intention is to advertise the units in the local area or the that being said, if you see that applications outside of that community, we must review that and look at that the same way we would have.
So I guess maybe this might be a question for Alex. I think you might know in years past, depending on funding sources, some some funding sources for housing will actually not allow preferential treatment to city of Newburgh residents for. I know that all of these funding sources are very different. Do you know, has that changed? Or,
I think for these tax credit projects, Andrew described it well. So you're allowed to target your advertisement, but you can't then discriminate on whatever application.
That is statewide, that's every program, that's how every program with financing
Mhm.
is, that is the norm.
So if I can ask, we just passed a project where we required a very high percentage of the labor force to come from the city of Newburgh. And I mentioned similarly that I think it's important when we're giving from IDA benefits or some of the those benefits that the same percentage for housing, if that's what it's going to be, we should also be required to house city of Newburgh residents. We're looking for that. How do we address the, is there a way to address that, given funding source requirements and giving our view of
I think there's two parts to that question. The first part is, the second part is similar to the warehouse project. We can insist that, and we would, the developer would flow that into the leases, that the people working at the commercial development facilities would be at least, they would use best efforts to have at least 75% to be residents of the city or large cap. I don't think that's difficult to include in leases.
Well, I'll say that,
Just for the commercial needs.
just
for the
are we
commercial-
talking about commercial, we're talking about.
Well, I'm getting to the. I think Ms. Amato asked two questions
Okay,
without realizing, so I took the second one, because I think that's easier. Which is,
do you agree with that characterization of your question?
I wasn't necessarily because there's a smaller percentage of commercial.
Good.
It's not the same as the warehouse that we're creating.
that's actually.
The majority of the benefit here is to create housing.
Right.
That we are asking of being a tax priority benefits for, so.
Don't think you can target, as was discussed, but I will. Prior to the public hearing, I will chat with my partner that does these types of projects every day. And see if there's a way, we'll chat with you.
I mean, I would generally say, obviously, we want this housing to tangibly here. Simultaneously, of course, when we put tight requirements on, obviously, as a developer, it's hard to get these projects done. The more hoops you have to jump through, the more difficult it is. I would just say on the other side of that, so much, insofar as obviously wants to provide housing to your existing residents that need it, so too do you want to some extent to provide housing for new people, which generally stimulates the economy. It also brings new ideas, it brings people different experience, different business financial backgrounds, and so you're simultaneously trying to do both. I think it should be, or what that percentage is debatable, right? But when you get really tight with the requirement, it can make it, I can't say what the future will bring. It may be that. Yeah, so I think it's certainly our intention, absolutely, I can say without question, to target these units towards people in the area insofar as the law allows us, right? But I think generally it's also good to have some new people in there as well, to have a mix, right? The building itself is a considered mix insofar as affordability levels are staggered, almost perfect. Starting at 30%, going up to 80%, and then with 18 units of market. So in the same sense that you have a income mix, so too you want to some extent geographically. I think that there's salutary benefits beyond what we're necessarily able to absolutely spoke for.
We'll report to the board before the next meeting and make a recommendation for consideration that should then be discussed at the whole.
But yeah, I just think we should be consistent across the board if we're wanting to impose Certain developers and certain things, you're getting community benefits, you're getting all your benefits should be worth to. Thank you.
May I just ask you a question? How much tax are you paying currently per year on the parcel?
I believe the parcel at the moment, your purchase and sale agreement, so going on, because it is paying about 12,000 a year.
Okay. And the taxing jurisdictions would receive about $8 million over the course of the benefit period.
Correct.
Currently, it's 9,000.
Yeah, if you look on,
About,
on page 15, you can see the schedule. So
okay.
9,000 is the current year, we escalated out 2% a year, to get out 32 years to see.
Okay. And Michael, if I may just ask again, what did you, this print in here is a little small for.
Sorry, yeah.
No, it's all right. We'll put it up on the screen during the public hearing and everything. But what do you estimate again to be the economic activity generated from this project?
So economic activity would be the jobs, the ongoing jobs,
Mhm.
right? So it's about 52. That's a combination of the jobs that result from the household income being spent,
Mhm.
right? And the jobs that are actually on site at the commercial spaces, right? And then finally, we have the indirect jobs, which are the.
Okay.
Okay. I would just add to that, perhaps beyond Michael or anybody's ability to measure, but the, impact of this project respective to property values of area, right? Whether we took the lot that's now infill, providing additional amenities in the form of those retail spaces and people, the salutary effect, not to overuse that word, to the property values in the area, and thus increase in tax revenue as a result of that general trend towards desire to be there to live and active. This resource which will be this advantage of is also that not easy to measure, but certainly something just to take note of.
Thank you for that. Do any members have any additional questions? If not, I'll ask for a motion on resolution number 2024-12-16-02, authorizing a public hearing.
Chairperson, may I just ask for one more comment? That's it as well. You're also, and I'll just say, obviously pursuing not only state funding, but funding in the form of grants from the state, so HFA and grants. When you're pursuing multiple funds, it can who goes first and to some extent dictate the project that we get on. And so receiving a pilot now in a timely manner, in addition to momentum funds, both of which kind of need to happen for the state to then take us seriously as a project that both EDC and the city has indicated, yes, we agree, this is good, it's important. So in a similar fashion, to the extent that we're able to have a public hearing and education next month, presuming that the warrant support of the project is incredibly important to ensure that this project happens in a timely manner. I'm looking to break around October and that more time, it's tenuous, right? And we're competing in a pool for money with different municipalities, both for momentum funds and for state funding. So nothing is assured. So we're desirous to move in the Great Lakes so that we can ensure that does not slip away.
Understood. And just a follow-up question. I know a number of projects in Newburgh were awarded momentum funds. I don't have the number of projects off the top of my head. Is that information that you have? Is it
I
3?
think it's 3.
Three?
Philippe's is 1.
Yep.
I know that
191.
Seixas,
And
yeah,
191.
Seixas is the second, and then
Oh, okay. Okay, great. Thanks. I think that is the of all the municipalities in the Hudson Valley, Newburgh received the most awards for Momentum Fund project. Okay. Okay, great. Thank you for that. Okay, may I have a motion for resolution 2024-12-15-02, authorizing a public hearing on not less than 25 days notice regarding a proposed project to be undertaken for the benefit of 50-72 Liberty Street LLC.
So,
Mr. Moore moves the motion. May I have a second?
Okay.
Church second. Roll call on the motion.
Michael,
Aye.
Alexander Church,
Yes.
Gregory Buda.
Yes.
It's wrong. Shannon Demore,
yes.
Christina Amano, and Shonda Powell.
Yes.
Right. Wow, we're getting there. Resolution number 2024-12-16-03. This is our annual housekeeping resolution for year 2025. It accomplishes quite a few things. So I'd like to ask the executive director and the council comment and provide some background on the resolution.
Sure, so for number one, both committees have already met and your respective reports have already recommended. Adoption for the full board for 2025. We have the 2024 operations and accomplishments, and the 2024 operations and accomplishments, and 2025 performance measures. That basically says what did we accomplish last year and how do we plan to accomplish new things for the following year. The mission statement, which was already read, confirmation of the agency calendar, which I would like to go over with you because January and February are different months. Appointment of the executive director, myself as compliance officer, reporting secretary with staff to the agency. Appointment of accounting firm of the agency for the annual audit, which we mentioned is appointment of the agency counsel and bond counsel to the agency, which is Bob at White and Boston and Hannah. Appointment of special counsel to the agency, which is Ben, who you met from J&G. Appointment of the bank and the bank of the agency and accounts, which are put everything that we use in our treasurer's report. And then fee structure of the agency, which is the last item, and we did review that with the audit finance committee, how the IDA charge money to developers. And so I would point out that's how we project what we will make in the coming years when projects come to us. And also we just charge a $250 fee annually to projects for the compliance part of it, so the reporting. And of course, you know, I would guess I could mention as well, if any point in time throughout the year, we feel that you want to address any of these things, we can at that time. We did, I think, update that fee structure last year. Added the 250, so that we did, you know, that.
The 250 is not retroactive on each project, so IV5 would be the first one to have a $250 fee for the compliance requirements of the pension.
Yes, so
You have to do an amendment to the hotel project at some point, maybe when they get the pay base, C-base.
I was gonna ask if they, I figure they know about that.
We would put the 250 in that, so that's essentially a new close.
Yes, so for January, our meeting is going to fall on Martin Luther King Day, and for February, it's going to fall on President's Day. So I had already met with the governance committee, and 3 of them that were there said that they could move the meeting date to January 22nd. Just want to confirm with the rest of the public, that's okay, because I need to schedule the public hearing. That's where we were coming up with the 22nd. The public hearing for the new projects would be that day, and then for February, it would be Wednesday, February 26th, and then from there on out would be the 3rd Monday of every month, and then in July and August we have breaks, so the board is not. So if everyone has those dates available, then I can go ahead and definitely schedule the public hearing tomorrow. For January 22nd, if that's okay with them.
Good.
Okay. How's available?
What was the other one for February you were looking at?
It's
26?
fallen on President's Day, but it'll be February 26th.
Just for the board to know, I unfortunately can be out of town, for for a good part of January, actually, so I will not be able to make it. My associate Connor, be able to present my.
Do you know if that board has like the ability to do Zoom on it or just? I have no idea.
But this one?
That one?
Mhm.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It's a smart board, it should.
I have a question about the fee structure. So I'm trying to pull up the treasury report, at least from this past month, but I've had some difficulty doing that. And do you have information in front of you now that would summarize year-to-date deposits? It just seems from what I recall of the report that it presented earlier, that agency is, for lack of a better phrase, making quite a bit of money. I'm wondering if that's indicative of the fees being a little bit higher than they need to be.
So those fees only apply for the fee structure, they only apply when we close on the project. So like, for example, with 191 Washington Street, they got an approving resolution, we never closed on it, so. Any money that you're seeing coming in from the treasury report is coming in through either the armory, the cell phone tower. Interest on the CD.
Insurance law for 3.6.
Oh. How much did you put in that?
Yes, and then so, yeah, the fee structure will only happen like when the logistics center closes, that goes into effect. Other than that, we don't really, the only instances we use anything on this piece of paper, as Bob mentioned, would be the $250 reporting moving forward, and then the application fee, which is $1,000, and then also, anything that we incur for the newspaper, the transcription, we bill that back to the developer anyway, so those are at cost.
In the past, when this became a question about additional creativity or higher fees that we invest. Sorry. I think we will, hospitals voted to minimize fees, where possible, because obviously projects that are coming to us need assistance anyway. And since we do have a flow of revenue coming from the other courses. So generally, to the lower end of the restrictions. Or not, or something else.
Any other additional comments, questions?
Is this on our next resolution or is this just?
We're still on the house.
Us? Is there anything you can just let us know what the items within the finance committee you went over kind of basically as formatted changes, if there are some changes, we just.
Policies.
Policies, anything that's. That's not.
Um,
Formatted.
There were harassment policy.
Although, if I can clarify, because I asked a question and it was clarified, I think why, is that there was a constitutional change, New York State Constitution. And I asked if that was fully represented, and it was, and it looks like much of the change in our harassment policy is to mirror the language, the constitutional change, so. Although a lot of red line, that was later clarified.
It's because of that, as well as just. My view on certain policies is. They're reviewed annually, but then every other year they're. Reviewed more substantively. And I asked, my associate to look at that does harassment policies on a regular basis for training as part of the employment law practice. To really look at this one this year in light of the changes that were recently made. So that's what's in here. The other policies, the bylaws had a couple of typos. A change regarding membership to reflect the city employees, which is consistent with the statute. Code of ethics was cleanup of some typos, the conflicts of interest. And the freakout foil were clean up some typos. Internal control, left that to the committee. Positive investment, I left that to the committee. Local labor, change of date only, mission statement was already reviewed. Discretionary funds, I left that to the committees. Procurement policies were consistent with state law. We made a couple of changes to that a few years ago regarding amounts. The acquisition policy hasn't changed. The disposition policy we changed last December, but I didn't see any changes, so I left that to the committee. The recapture policy is really driven by statute, so that's just summarizing what the statute requires, as well as documents that close up to them as well. And the UTEP, you haven't been making changes.
So did any of the boards make any changes that you left to the committees? I mean, the committees made changes from their themselves.
On top of one story.
There's one period that I found in type of bylaws. That there were no recommended changes, they had questions that. Like, that was question on. Harassment and then. Mike had a question on it. The being comptroller. And I said the housekeeping resolution took care of that, and I reviewed it in this in details. Those were really just the two questions.
Have you said?
So I found out the board does do Zoom.
Oh, no. Awesome. Thanks, Sharonda. All right. I'll entertain a motion for resolution 2024-12-16-03. Annual housekeeping motion.
So moved.
Ms. Church moves the resolution. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Morris seconds. Roll call on the motion.
Michael Knuckle,
Aye.
Alexander Church.
Yes.
Tatiana Demora.
Yes.
Gregory Nato,
Staying.
Christina Amato. And Sharon Pop.
Yes.
Right. And finally, we have resolution number 2024-12-16-04. This is a resolution adopting the 1 and 5 year budget.
Oh. Question on that, or question the resolution? You want any explanation from finance committee or anything?
I would love as much discussion as people would like to have. May we have a report from the audit and finance committee on this resolution?
You can do it.
was about to say, go ahead, just.
Every year, we do a single budget compared to what actuals right for the year. So it's another point. And we look at the 5-year budget given sort of where we're projecting various revenue expenses. And some of that in our case has to do with actual and our fund. These are decisional change the board, so we just project conservatively 3% inflation, which we are all hoping for the next 5 years. And use that factor for most of the items. We did put into our income items projections you see in 2025. That amount goes to which goes in projects for us. As we that also includes back on the armory. And sure. We've actually interest. Yeah, interest is in
That's
so yep, so we just mostly attributed it work factor to the circumstances of 2025 and we normalize areas. See what. Oh, yeah.
So every year, the 5-year is, okay, not like every year where you're approving it and we're sticking with it. Okay.
No, that's just
required for Paris.
Okay.
I have to.
Do a 5-year projection.
And then I think the 1 year, even though it's just this extraction of 5-year. So the 1 year somewhere as well, so that's why.
Understood.
Yeah, but we based a lot of 2025 off of things that we knew, cell leases that we already have, which is known. No other objective.
What's captured in the out years rental and financing income? See a pretty significant reduction from 25.
Which line, sorry?
The under operating revenues, the rental and financing income line.
The $1 million includes we stated, we're projecting 3 projects that's actually closing. Hopefully in 25. And then the 26 to 29 is just basically. One project just with the armory. Rent and other items. So the 3 places that we predominantly receive income of one business. Like Cher explained, closing on projects, so 3 projects. You need to be aggressive to say that they're closing in 2025, but if you do, then that fees associated with that, which are significant. We have the rental income on the armory, plus cell tower. The investment earnings is a separate. So we just projected, we're not sure what the future for those closings projects would be, was closing of those first project. So.
So even without the assumptions in the rental and financing income, our revenues still exceed projected expenditures for 2025. Right. I guess I would just say for the out year projections, I think the agency is trending towards transferring the armory out of agency ownership. So projecting for rental income from that property probably isn't best practice. But I could understand, budgeting, in out years can be challenging.
I don't think my computer on.
We actually didn't include the cell tower, those projections. Cause I thought that the lease was over and, one of the leases was over in February, but since Bob mentioned that it's in 2027. It all, which is not included, is also the lease of the cell phone tower for 2024.
How much, one more time in here?
She's going
Oh,
to
sorry.
give a total really quick,
Sorry.
know how much we generally make in a month. So when you start typing everything wrong.
Russia, we're all waiting. Mr. Chair, to your point, the only thing I would point out on what happens in the future is that this is a budget based on what you know and what the solutions that we best. You haven't actually made a resolution to transfer, certainly made a change in the disposition policy, and again, heading in that direction. But in this snapshot in time, there's nothing on the horizon. So it's a budget. It's a projection, which required unfortunately by Paris. So I just raised that as a difference.
So we think about 52,000 in one of the cell phone towers, so it's 60-30 more. So it's like. Okay.
And just one more clarification that doesn't have to be answered now, but so, the agency, like other public agencies, is just, expected to break even, like theoretically. And then have tax reserve, is there a tax reserve expectation?
We've been in deficit when I first started at the agency. And I don't know how they feel about that in the ABO, but I've never
Or I should ask
comment
the
about it.
auditor, if the auditor.
Never been questioned.
There's nothing in the statute that requires, unlike municipalities,
Well,
there's nothing in the statute that requires that. There are agencies in the state that close lots of projects that charge tremendously higher fees and make a significant amount of cash. They also have the more expensive payroll, and so they need those closing fees to pay their staff, which are doing more, depending on, the city of Albany. The economic development team is all paid essentially by the IDA and the CRC, which closes their loans. They do a lot.
And the academy and one of them said they report on 100 projects a year, so.
But a bottom line going towards zero, yes, this $300,000 buffer is healthy in terms of.
Then my other client in Cattaraugus, they have one project
Right.
that closed 4 years ago. Different answers, but they also have different programs. They're in charge of Section 8 housing. They're in charge of a lot of federal grant program, because those nowhere else to house it. So they have IDA monies, but they also have Section 8 monies, and they have the federal needs. So it's interesting.
All right.
Sorry, just wanted to see in our touch. Sorry, you had conversations about everything last year. Those are also sort of handed, those are the discretionary in terms of closing stuff, project close.
You can certainly change closing fees, but it's historically the practice of IDAs in the state charge a fee as a percentage of the project in total. And so your fees, they think, are very consistent with the Orange County IDA, Montgomery, all the IDAs that are at Orange County. Consistent with Ulster County, consistent with Dutchess County, inconsistent with Nassau County, something the type of IDA. Totally different than the town of Brookhaven, which again, a different type of IDA. different type of structure, but certainly within this area, they need. The percentage is consistent. And traditionally, those closing fees are the only fees. Besides application fees that the IMB is getting it to pay its expenses. In your case, you also have budgeted. There's some idea, many ideas to do that.
Okay, there are no other questions on the resolution. I'll entertain a motion for resolution 2024-12-16-04. Adopting the 1 year and 5 year financial plan.
So moved.
This church moves the resolution. Is there seconds?
Second.
Not a seconds. Roll call on motion.
Michael Neville,
Aye.
Alexander Church.
Yes.
Again, Morrow.
Yes.
Ruby Nato.
Yes.
Stephen Bono. Shonda Powell.
yes,
Okay. I think item 9, old business branding. Watson services.
If I may, I got in there. But I'm also asking to Mike to stick around, we have to go back to Saratoga. Add to stick around, just so that we could ask any questions regarding the UTEP. And I don't know if you just wanted to maybe have that conversation first, that we could head back. I know because there were just questions about having a retreat and how much cost, and basically we transfer all of that now, so. Just wanted to be still.
I to the, I mean, we should do it on the record. So I'm sure the executive director has shared. Fine. Great. The agency is considering a retreat to evaluate the current state of the UTEP. We received a quote. Just some kind of spitballing about the amount of time and energy that will be dedicated to analyzing foundational document of the agency. I think we're quoted something in the neighborhood of $6,800 for a 4-hour retreat. We're wondering if that's actually enough time. And this should be done over the course of a series of retreats, maybe. I don't know where the rest of the board members are on that, but in your experience with other clients that have undertaken this work, can you just provide some context of how other ideas may have approached this one?
Sure, happy to do so. So first I'll just, one clarification is that, we have previously been engaged by the IDA to look at the UTEP policy, right? And for a variety of reasons, I won't go into, that initiative kind of stalled. So we got about halfway through that, we did some data collection, looked at some other uses we had, but we didn't get to the meat of it, which is, okay, now, right, what are we actually gonna do as an agency to amend that UTEP, right? I will say one other thing, as I'm sure legal counsel will agree, the comptroller doesn't like to see every project deviating from your UTEP. That's kind of the opposite of what a UTEP is, right? And so it is really important that the agency take a good look at that so that let's say the majority of the deals that we see come to, right? Not every deal is going to say, oh, we need some new deal on it. As far as moving forward, my experience with this is it usually takes several discussions of the board. I think one of them could be a retreat, but I would encourage you to maybe have a couple of briefer meetings in addition to the retreat, right? One of the things that a retreat can help bring out is sort of like, what are we really about? What are our public policy goals? I think in particular with housing, that seems to be a very big discussion in IDAs out there. What spaces do we want to be in that? Is it just affordable? Is it just workforce? Is it just market? Is it some combination of that, right? Questions like we asked today, how do we think about benefit to as an agency? Some of that can be in your UTEP, right? Some of it belongs to other policies, but some of it can be incorporated into. So I think that's the best place for the retreat to be in, is kind of those bigger public policy decisions where we're kind of coming in. The mechanics of, okay, what's your abatement schedule for this project, what's your abatement schedule for this, hypothetical archetypal project? That usually takes a few meetings to get through, right? And that's just more technical, right? So that's what my suggestion would be. Let's have one retreat for the policy, and let's maybe have the expectation it's gonna take a couple of IDA board meetings to get through the meeting.
We're calling it a treat, but it's really just a meeting. Let's hear.
Yes,
Will you be present this fall and to
If you ask me to, I'll be happy to. It's up to you guys.
our previous conversations with us and watch that we don't reach this distance. Sort of right where the challenges are within the city of Newburgh, how to be approach them. And what legally, how we can address that, or how we get into that with the complex.
I do agree with Michael, and I've said this to the board, the old members, old existing members. What they have said several times that if you're deviating from the step every time, you have to leave. You really depend on a good UTEP. The UTEP should be, this is all UTEP. Period. In fringes, we may think of the deviation. You shouldn't be deviating. I mean, the last project we didn't have, should that was to like I said, it's what you really need to have a robust view tab that fits all of the different projects that you're now getting, not just warehouse, but housing, which isn't addressed in the current tab at all, but as well as commercial. And what is the right number of warehouse seems to work with this project? Please consider that. You can consider something else.
so retreats I just use a fancy word to say it's a meeting where this is all we talk about. Right, it's not a normal IDA board meeting, there's no other agenda items, we just sit down and hash it.
And it's not subject to open meetings law, is that right as well?
It-
Public can come, does come,
It is the public. You have to notice it, okay? But typically the public doesn't.
You don't have to report it, right?
And it's essentially a work session, but an IDA where there is no such thing as a work session. On there, it's attorney-client as well. You provided a third party. So, and clearly it should be noticed. Ideally, it's somewhere outside the city or relatively close, but outside the city, so that it's 3-4 hours away from noise and distractions, if that's possible. So
And to Alan's question before, you asked about, like how this continues to our contract that we already have, how like the billing aspect of it, something like.
yeah, the UTEP, well, there, so. Unrelated to the work that you presented earlier, so on specifically the UTEP, is this part of an existing contract, this, the retreat? Are you looking for a new contract? Because there was a long pause,
Yeah,
so.
so we do have an existing contract. We've already expended a fair amount of that, and we don't currently have any changes to the UTEP. So I'm not saying we're starting over, but we'd have to ask for additional funds. Right, and we can provide a real quote to share this is the direction we're going. So I think the easiest way to do it is to add it as an additional service to our existing hub, right?
Well, we allowed to do that, or do we have to slow down there, like, so we know it's not. Does that mean
You pop and say. We already have a contract, so it's just.
you already have a contract,
Yeah.
but let me look at the RFP, just make sure you are carrying. You don't recall what the RFP is. So I'll just put, sorry. I know we did the RFP.
Oh, wow.
And I know that the contract is from the contract. I'll go back to the board. But I would think since we have a contract, we probably can add that into the budget and add that into services, and it's not there, but I work that up as forward.
Yeah, we have I mean, unless we made some special change, our typical engagement letter includes additional services line that says as directed by the I.
That's what I. So,
I'd have to 100% verify that, but you typically have.
I appreciate that. I'll put that in. So we do have one official old business item.
Yes, so I meant to give you, I know I gave you a copy of that in your digital packet, I didn't print it out. But just to go over that, Black Dog gave me a quote for 10,600. We're to continue doing the PR work. And that would be, just to go over really quickly, 4,200 for social media, 2,000 for ads, 1,050 for quarterly newsletter, annual end of the year newsletter, 350, press releases, 600, and a media purchasing budget of 2,400. And so, you know, I just would like some direction of how you would like to spend the remaining part of the contract, that we had some items that we didn't use. And if this is something that the board is interested forward with. I know we talked about it, but I didn't get like a specific direction on it, so,
How many posts did they do that we were supposed to do, or?
thinking this is 4 months, 4 to 5, like once a week they could schedule. We could have done obviously anything we wanted to on our own, but they were really good about, you know, having a meeting and sitting down and making a plan for the whole year. So I think it was 4. What we have left, I can tell you exactly.
But they haven't posted.
I haven't moved anything. I didn't know
I think we have,
how we want to do this as an agency forward posting on social media platforms.
There are 2 press releases left and 4. I think.
But we did talk in our executive committee, there is one outstanding topic though, because I don't think there was ever a press release on the warehouse. Is that?
Correct.
Okay.
We have board members, we have a new project, that's been approved, so those are all things that can. Yeah. That's.
the scope of services is simply copy and social media posting.
So they do work on our website, right? Like they did website and that was completely different. Any maintenance, whatever, that's different. For this, it's yes, and it can be added. The presentation does have more suggested items, but it's social media, it's buying ads. We pay them, they then post the ads, so those usually tend to be separate posts. Quarterly newsletter to a mailing list, annual end of the year newsletter, press releases, and then a media purchasing budget. I don't remember what was the media purchasing.
What if we had something really significant and we wanted to go out to like News 12?
Right.
That would require media on.
Okay. Then other things that they quoted for was they could come in and do a video campaign, an annual report presentation, adding blog pages to the website, monthly blogs.
If they, the content for the posts, was based off of the work that they did, the video work and interviewing.
They did come, we had them come and do, and take pictures and,
Onto the VPR mark.
right, and that was all of us kind of coming up with it on our own, giving them direction. So, yeah, that can definitely be included as well.
I mean, what else do they post? They have direction in post, or is that
Yeah.
how it sounds?
Is that a main word, which was, right?
Kind of like a campaign we were thinking of running, but then it just kind of all stalled. But but yeah, they don't do anything on their own. Everything has to be approved through the IDA.
Yeah, I mean, definitely the two, right, yeah, the warehouse one seems like will improve, My brain steps back. Look, well,
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think the website looks really good. I think the videos were great content. It sounds like the scope of services is capturing work that is more appropriately performed by agency staff. Um. That's just me. So I think. I think the vendor has done great work. I could see some amendments to the scope of services. Uh. So I think it's something that we can continue our engagement as we talk a bit more about what, the engagement looks like going forward.
Yeah, I welcome any comments, of what you would like to see released, and then I can ask for you.
Their contract ends then this year.
The PR work ends. Yes, the website ends, I think, like next year's.
So to get these press releases in post, do we have to agree on sort of, or can they give us content that they still have based on the picture that's being positive? Or go business
I mean,
posts or things like that.
I can have them
Or something.
make something, propose something, I'll just say that previously the board kind of gave me leeway on just saying yay or nay to things. In this case, if you all don't feel comfortable with that yet, then, I mean, a press release on agency board members or the, logistics center, I would just circle around and then, or hitting send on that, and redline that.
Oh, but if you're gonna approve it, I guess what I'm getting at, if you're gonna approve the post, then, that's fine, with that, I just think we should. Continue.
And before it was usually me, Marlon and Gregory, we would meet in a bi-weekly meeting with budget consultant, and we would kind of say, okay, this is what we want January and February to look like. These are the themes of kind of January and February. And yes, agency staff can do, but it's just when you have somebody pushing you to do it, it's just a little bit more consistent, and they're thinking creatively at different angles that you're not thinking of. It's helpful.
Did you ever have new content, a new restaurant you've been to, and new events? Send it our way, because those are the things we need to put.
No doubt.
I'm comfortable with that I mean, I don't know if we call it a subcommittee, but I mean, I don't feel like I need to be involved in everything. So I was working, it's working, I don't wanna, if it's my.
Be part of those weekly meetings, and then it just continues. It wasn't just, I was kind of going off of what they were telling me in the spirit of it, so.
Yeah, I mean, I think every board functions differently, right? And certain circumstances call for a little bit more involvement depending on the subject matter, but this sounds to me squarely in the executive director's lane and in the day-to-day operations of the agency. But I think conversations are always beneficial. I know there's been some changes, in the board membership and, but yeah, that sounds to me like executive director work.
One thing I didn't add to the old business, if I may, could you just, for Bob as well, update us, because I know you both know about the CPACE, what happened at the hearing, because he's always speaking to counsel for the hotel.
Not always.
Well, not always, but maybe so that he can have something to work on based on whatever you say happened at that hearing.
Council approves, yes, it's fine.
So it's immediate.
I don't know the answer to that.
Well, that's what the resolution said, so I was.
There you go,
wondering-
so we passed a resolution, yes.
Okay, I was just wondering, like, if the public comment said something, there was like a time period to wait, but if it said it needed, that was just right after public comment.
For facilities,
I can do it quickly. So there is a mechanism in New York State, it's called CPACE, it's commercial, I don't know what it stands for. But it is a benefit that a commercial project can make, any commercial project in a taxing jurisdiction that's passed it. So here it would be Newburgh, but in the town, it would be the county, right?
Okay.
It allows them to, the benefit is on the increase in costs of so the increase in the costs related to energy efficiency, it's set by New York State, so it's not
Okay.
general energy efficiency, but energy efficiency improvements to a new project.
Okay.
They get that benefit in the form of a financing mechanism that is levied on the value of their property. So ultimately, taxing jurisdiction holds the lien,
Okay.
which is terrifying, except they're really good at explaining they've never had a default and they have a great review committee and but yeah, so that's basically it. It's a lien that those taxi jurisdiction takes, and so it gives them an extra kind of tax financing. It seems like most of these improvements are at this point required by like the new flex code, like it hasn't even caught up. So they're probably doing it anyway, but this offers them a very low interest chunk of cash.
So you say you leave.
Yeah,
That's not something.
You don't have to record it. No, we've gone through it. You do nothing. So
Yeah. And these are commercial projects. and you're basically
any
getting-
commercial project, yes, any
To pursue these.
any commercial project
Green
could,
initiatives.
in the taxing jurisdiction that passes it could do this. And there are some great websites that show ones that have, just is a little bit more in the capital statute, very low interest rate. So, but it could be, yeah.
This was a request made for the hotel project,
Ah,
for them to give financing. lender.
yeah.
So with
This is the
this,
last-
they'll be able to go back to the lender, say this is done, they have to redo their. As I understand it from council, they have to redo their application because it's been a few months. But presumably that'll kickstart that project if we can close on an amendment on it. In short order for the next year.
But both of the projects that presented tonight, for example, could also take advantage of this. if they wanted. So
Town 191 Washington.
anyone, literally any project, yes, it is unrestricted, other than you must go to their, there is a lending committee and all of that.
And who administers it? The state?
The state has set up an administrator, so it's private, but it is set up by the state.
All right, thanks. We entertain a motion to adjourn. All right, there's another move to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Church, seconds, all in favor?
Hi.
All right.
New Year, everyone. Happy New Year. We got to see you all. Not me. Yes. Okay. So we got the one that